How's it going, YouTube? So, I've been playing Path of Exile 2 for the past week and a half, and I kind of completely forgot to make a build guide video. I'm pretty sure this has been covered to death, but to anyone that's starting late, and this might find you, you might find this useful. But I played Reflect Paladin. I played Reflect Paladin for, well, a few days, considering like my first three characters died. They were all warlocks. This just became and turned out to be probably the greatest build I've ever played in this game. Um, as you can see here, we have full block cap with 59% block effectiveness. We have 7k armor. Decent health, not great, but you really don't need a lot of health considering your health regen is at 550 per second. And you have full endurance cap with over half your health bar on endurance. But here, before I get into like the meat of the build, let's do like a little build showcase. So mapping is like, this is why this build is sick. It's sick. It's so goddamn good. Literally, you find the empty spot, and then you just zoom. You just zoom. You just zoom through the map. Oh. Kind of do want these. Honestly, I'm kind of coming back to like just cover this a little bit. So I'm not exactly gonna map. But hey. We're here. Might as well like show you what I was doing. Yeah, this is what mapping looks like. Realistically, nothing survives the sheer amount of damage you do. They just run through, run through, run through. Have a shrine. We don't really need shrines. It gives you dex. Dex doesn't do anything, so this isn't really going to affect the build in any way. Champions, obviously, still insanely overtuned. So they live for like a little longer than rare enemies. Not by a lot. Not by a lot. This build is just insane. Oh, look, there's the ambush. I forgot. Okay, it's gone. Alright, well, that's just a 300 corruption ambush. I did not do Uber Rabbies yet. Like, I didn't really push that far. But we can go do a regular Abberoth. So let's go do a regular Abberoth. Real quick, for bosses and dangerous stuff where you actually need the defenses, I generally switch over to Healing Hands, and I will explain why in the skill section. Let's go do a real quick Abberoth. Okay, that's the Harpies down. But as you can see, this is all on hardcore. We're on level 98. Playing a Paladin, don't mind the name. Kind of just immediately face him. Stacks don't really do much to us. Just like walk around, you can dodge. It is very much the walking simulator builds. All you're really doing is like staying in front of the boss. And by and large, the boss will just die on his own. Oh, we got hit, but there's the capped block. For big slams like that, you can just rebuke. You still do have to be somewhat wary of DOTs. This you can just block. It's not a big deal. We were here, we have the classic ridiculous final phase. Not really too bad. Took like 1 tick of damage there. And there we go. So pretty nice, pretty clean. Obviously there isn't like a whole lot of content in the base game, short of like Uber Abberoth, that can really contend with the power of this build. And yeah, this is like towards the very end, but if you play it, you'll notice that there really isn't too much of a difference. Hey, we got a 2 LP Nihilist, look at that. But you'll notice there really isn't too much of a difference in power from like this stage and like a significantly earlier stage without the red rings, without, frankly, most of the gear, as long as you have the base stats that you need. So let's go over those. Let's talk about the mechanics of the build. Alright, and then again, for monoliths, you can leave it with healing hands. It's just way more fun to do Shield Rush. Shield Rush is just so satisfying. Shield Rush is so satisfying. Get a long corridor, and everything just dies, You turn around. The CD's lower too, so you can just like sprint, you just sprint. Oh look, there's a boss. Crazy how that works. Okay, so this is the build, and the mechanics are basically all of your damage comes from this one armor, and everything you're doing is stacking your reflect damage. This one's a pretty decently rolled one. You can see it is almost max rolled on the more damage reflected. It is almost max rolled on the damage reflected to attackers flat. That doesn't matter as much. Our main source of flat damage comes from the idols, but this is a very good roll. As you can see, it has T7 attunement. Attunement is one of your biggest scalers because of the shield. The shield is all of your increased damage, and this is all of your flat and more damage. So, standard ARPG scaling, you want flat, you want increase, and then you want more. Just these 2 items alone covers almost all of what you need, and the only thing you're doing from there is like scaling more and more flat. Percent reflected does nothing for the build. It is entirely based off of your flats and some other stuff like Paladin mechanics, which we'll cover when we get into the tree. But more importantly, why Paladin over Druid? And it's honestly entirely a concession for hardcore. Paladin lets you have a little more HP. Paladin has a better Relicure. Paladin has a more defensive tree. And Paladin, because of the defensive tree, lets you hit block cap, and block cap is very nice. That is the entire reason. Like, just hitting block cap is very strong. And the internal mechanics of Paladin is just like more defensively slanted. However, if you're playing on softcore, this doesn't matter. I would honestly recommend a Druid over a Paladin every single time if you're like on SC trade or like even SSF, because this is on SSF, because it just doesn't matter. But no, with Paladin, you are like effectively mostly immune to damage or anything that can kill you. Your defensive layers are, and this is like why, block, as I said before, but rebuke, as you saw in that fight, where you can rebuke most big slams and hits from the boss, and you take almost no damage. You'll notice back in the fight, I took like 60 damage from like the slams, or like 65 something from like the swipes, the wind slashes. Endurance, because you'll see I am endurance capped, and my endurance pool is bigger than half my health bar. My health bar itself is not huge. It's not like at 4,000 health or something, but 2.6 is still good enough for most things that will do any damage to you, considering you take like 60 damage from pinnacle boss hits. Even like on the ones where I didn't rebuke, his basic hits were doing like 20 something damage. They were in the double digits. You don't care. You're healing for 550 health per second. You're healing for a fifth of your entire health bar every single second whenever you take damage. And it's not even just that. Since we have so much attunement, our smite is also giving us a ton of healing because of smite mechanics in the trees. I'm not going to go really in depth with the tree itself. You see I have like 2 spare points here because the 2 spare points honestly don't really matter all that much. We don't really ever use or tap symbols. These are all the ones that I want. The damage, like the generic damage, does not actually scale your reflect damage. So this doesn't do anything. These are all the points you need. You really only need 1 extra point on Symbols of Hope, which is why I have like 2 extra points here for illustrative purposes. Holy Aura, the more the better. I have it here for some poison res. You know what? We'll cover the skills later. Let's start with gearing, because I think like gearing is like the more distinct part of all of this. As you can see, I have the Monuments of Protection over the Vine Staff. I forget what it's called. But I do have like a bunch of them right here. Some really, really good ones. Like, yeah, I have a Hazel Root. I have Hazel Roots. Like, I have a 2 LP here. But I do not really like Hazel Root. In my opinion, I think this item is just bait on Paladin for sure. Because hitting block cap is way more relevant, and even with all the damage you get from stacking attunement, even though there's like value to it, I just do not think it's worth it, because your smite, even with all of the flat damage, does like a 10th or like a 20th of the damage that your reflect does. Like, the damage here does not matter. I would rather just not die. And hitting block cap again is sick. But yeah, so that's the shield. It's just a Monument of Protection. If you want to slam LP on this, my recommendations would be like Frailty, Slow. Remember, not melee hits. This is an axe, not a shield. This is actually an axe. But you want Slow and Frailty probably. Those would be like my go-to hits. You can do Parry Chance as well. I don't think it really does anything, but that is an option technically. It's like added layers of defenses. The helmet, Snowblind. I did look around for other helmets. There are some contenders. I'm glad we dropped this one because this was one of them. But really nothing is as good as Snowblind. It's really easy to drop LP on it. You have more armor against blinded enemies, and something to note about the body armor, which admittedly I should have covered this first, but like here we are. Your body armor also blinds all of your enemies. So Snowblind's more armor is actually always on, which is sick. Like, Immune to Chill also is like very, very nice. It is 1 layer of slow that is completely removed from you, so you don't have to care about it. The only thing that can really slow you is actual slow itself. The amulet is Evolution's End. Obviously, this is just like generically good. It's so good that it has completely powered out an Omnis. Like, that just doesn't matter anymore. You just saw me drop the Nihilus. I don't think I'm really going to use the Nihilus. I don't think this matters. But yes, Evolution's End, very, very good. Health is the best slam here. If you want, like, if you get a 2 LP one, I would just like try to slam another health on it. But this isn't the important one. Really, the most important slams that are like hard to get are double slams on attunement and body armor. But yes, like I mentioned earlier, shields, body armor. This is your primary source of scaling your damage. Make sure to get good rolls on this. This is probably like what you're going to be farming for until you have like really, really good rolls on it. You really only need 1 LP. If you get a second LP, something you can do is slam damage reflected to attackers in addition to the attunement. Attunement is way more important because idols are a much, much bigger source of your flat damage compared to your body armor. This, very important, the most important line of text here is the 9% increased flat damage. You'll see it can roll 5 to 9. You absolutely want 9% on this. I will take a 9% 0 LP over a 5% 2 to 3 LP. Like, every single time. Like, each percentage of your LP is so important to your damage. Like, for context, there's no actual damage here. There's like 84%, right? But my damage, by the way, you can look at your damage right here. We're currently at 29k. If I take this off, is 2k. 29k. 2k. So yes, these two slots are mandatory. Almost everything else you can swap to like whatever you want based on your preferences. This part, very, 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 very important. We have block chance here. You have a lot of options with what you want for Thornshell. Block effectiveness is, it's not even necessarily the best. There is also reduced damage taken on block, which is arguably better, but like we hit max block chance and block effectiveness, so like I took what I got. The other option, obviously, which is like arguably better if you want to do more damage, is you can take flat reflected damage reflected to attackers, because that is also something that can roll all your shield as well as your body armor. Obviously, if you can take it further, if you get a 4 LP shield, you can roll all 4 of them, and then you have like the best in slot shield. But even with this alone, you saw what happened to Abberoth. This does not matter. Belt, Brewmaster Buckle, just remains the best in slot belt for pretty much anything I've seen. Percent health is obviously best in slot, and ward, like you want some source of cleanse. We inherently, because we're Paladin is just the GOAT, we have like so many different sources of cleanse, but cleanse is like very, very strong. It is something that you absolutely need considering how DOTs work in this game, and your regen does not in fact counteract DOTs, because DOTs just work as tick damage instead of like a slow draining overtime like it does in PoE. So you need cleanse. Cleanse is super, super, super important. But again, like max health gain is endurance for 4 seconds when you use a potion is obviously very, very strong. Considering like if we heal a potion right now or grab a potion, it's like almost our entire health bar. It's just like that bit left. But again, very, very, very good. Boots, nothing special. It's Citadel boots. We're using this to make sure we are capped on reduced damage taken. It is the best armor base. It has movement speed. The most important part is it has T17 attunement. It's not even perfectly rolled. It's a T7. It's 15 attunement. But again, attunement is... This is the reason attunement is important. That increased damage, like that is the biggest chunk of your scaler, which means attunement is the biggest stat for scaling your damage. Hand of Judgment, literally the only reason you take these gloves is it has flat attunement on it. That is the only thing this unique does. That is the only relevant line of text on this unique item. You can replace this for something else, but just make sure you have like high attunement on it. You definitely want T7 attunement wherever you can find it, because T7 attunement is just like, or attunement in general is just the best in slot stat that you can find on this build. Code is here entirely because +1 skills, the armor is very good, and armor mitigation is super, super, super important on DOT. If you haven't played Last Epoch in the endgame, roughly the only thing that really ever kills you is DOT, and you can't cleanse it. So don't get got by DOTs. I have red rings here. This, again, like I said, I killed Abberoth like several times without red rings. The red rings do not matter. This is not very relevant at all to your power of the build. If you don't have red rings, look for T7 attunement or T7 block chance, some combination of good. Either or, like, either of them work fine. It really doesn't matter. If you do get red rings, or if you do have like a good ring to slam, before red rings I was using an Orion's. Orions are also very, very good. If you do get an Orions, try to get +2 to symbols, or +1 to symbols. Like I told you, like symbols, you only need like 1 point to have all of the things that are relevant to you. But yeah, you slam attunement on this, obviously. If you don't have capped block, you slam block chance. But that's just the entire build. And I have all of my damage sources, like I've been mentioning, on these Briar idols. I just have Briar showed up on my filter, and I just farmed every single Weaver, Tomb, Cemetery that I could find. Eventually I got enough, and the rest of it I wanted for armor and damage. Now, armor is actually another scaler because we are Paladin. Or I guess more specifically, because we're Sentinel. Because of this. This is one of the biggest reasons that it is actually really good to play this build on a Paladin over a Sentinel. Even though this is on Forge Guard, you don't really want to do Forge Guard because it is so important to actually have, 1, attunement, and 2, the defenses to, like, just not die in the endgame, for my case. But the tree is, like, very, very simple overall. Really, it's just every single tanky node that I can find. Make sure you take the block chances whenever you can, because, again, you want to have 100% block chance. So I have the 3-pointer here. I have the 1-pointer here. And the rest of this is just, like, tankiness. Physres, like, I know Physres scales your flat damage on the body armor, but it's, like, a very, very low value. Don't worry about scaling Physres. Physres is bait. You do want to cap it, though. So you take the armor here, the block effectiveness, mostly for the block chance. You take the bit of health here. None of the other ones are, like, really good. This is just more efficient because it's 12 health per point instead of 6. And then you take every single point here, because all of it is flat damage. Void Knight is just 5 points here, because health, void res, less damage taken. This is like a hyper efficient node that no matter what you're playing, you almost always take this if you're playing a Sentinel. And lastly, this is the Paladin tree. And the Paladin tree is literally, I take every single attunement node. This is all of the attunements. This is what block chance. Yet again, take all of the block chance. This is just a very solid node. It is like the most efficient node that you can really take approaching here, because you don't really care about any of the damage. Like none of this matters to you. Realistically, you're coming down here for the armor, and you're coming down here for more block chance. You're obviously never dodging because it's dodging in Last Epoch. I don't know why you're scaling it. You take the armor here, you take the attunement here. And this is the one part that I'm not really sure of. Obviously, I want more health, but I do really highly value armor mitigation applies to DOT. I very, very highly value this. And the regen feels very nice. But this is the only part I'm not very sure of. You can like mix and match and play around with this a little bit. It's also possible that like this is incorrect and you really want points either here or you want points here. But for me, this felt like the best so far. If I get 2 more points, I'll put 2 more points right here, because I don't think you need more points in Holy Aura and Symbols of Hope. Speaking of Holy Aura and Symbols of Hope, let's talk about the skills. So, Healing Hands. Healing Hands is just the best mobility skill, and I only use this for bossing specifically because it gives you an iframe on dodging. And on Abberoth, you saw me like dodge most of everything. I think I got by like 1 ball. But generally, you have Healing Hands. And Healing Hands also gives you ward. And because it's ward per 10% healing effectiveness, you get a ton of ward. Because you have a ton of attunement. You have a ton of attunement. So again, you take Healing Hands. Healing Hands procs every single time you hit Smite as well. And Smite, Healing Hands means like you're just generating a ton of ward. And then as you saw, it's not a lot of ward. You generate like, on average, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 400 to 600 ward. But again, you're taking like 60 damage. So that's good enough. It's really, really good. Abberoth didn't even touch our endurance. So speaking of Smite, Smite is purely a utility skill in this build. You're using Smite because this giant AoE makes it more forgiving to just have a cull. and the rest of it is just its healing. Smite is a button you press whenever you feel like it. This is all Smite does. This is a no button build. Your only button is your mobility skill. Symbols of Hope, as I mentioned, one of the greatest defensive skills. You're getting these here because you want the block chance and the block effectiveness. You're taking the endurance threshold. You're taking the mana efficiency, but this doesn't really matter. I just like put the points here for fun. You're taking the healing effectiveness, which is important, and you're taking, obviously, both +1 to symbols. So again, super, super, super good for defenses, and is one of the main ways we actually cap our block chance. Holy Aura, I don't think there's much that needs to be said here. It's just very good regen. It's just very good like ward retention. It's good. It's just good. It's not even entirely necessary. The block effectiveness is nice. The ward gain on block is really nice because again, we were blocking every single hit. And finally, Rebuke. Rebuke you can play around with, but like the base skill of Rebuke is just very, very strong for tanking the big hits, like the big slams. So you can just mostly just ignore mechanics. None of it really matters. You just like kill stuff. You can even like go for +2 charges. If you get more points from Rebuke, you like put points here, and you just hit Rebuke whenever you feel like you don't want to take damage. Which you probably won't anyway, because you're playing Paladin. I don't know, with all that being said, I just like kind of autonomously switched from PoE or from LE into PoE because I was struggling to generate like a lot of enjoyment in Last Epoch. They've made considerable strides in the game for sure. For any of you that's played like the Herod fight and like compared to the Herod fight before, they have made the fight like smooth. It is like one of the smoothest boss fights, and now the fight is like genuinely actually really good. But there's no getting around the fact that like the collision, the movement, the bugs, the glitches. You know what? I made a long form video that covers all of the positives and negatives, all of my love and all of my umbrages with the game. I'm gonna leave that link down below because that has more thought and has gone. I've put more work into that than like virtually any other video I've put together. So check it out if you want to listen to me yap for way longer, but at like a slightly higher production value. But the League was fun. It's just the game is very poorly balanced. I mentioned before that I don't want to go for Uber Abberoth because even with all of my defenses, I'm not even sure that it'll function or work with Ubers or like Uber Abberoth. I don't know if my defenses are good enough because he just does way too much damage and his attacks aren't consistently dodgeable. The fundamentals of this game and the foundation is built on like a very inconsistent base where everything's very slidey, everything's very like there are untold examples I could give you. Like Go play Rogue and try clicking Umbral Blades with your mouse in the same spot and watch it go in like 6 different directions every single time you click Umbral Blade. Go do like any map and watch like monsters run through walls and like collide and bounce off stuff. And then like a champion just doesn't take damage and then like one-shots you in 2 hits while also applying DOTs, while also shredding you. The defenses are all over the place, and that is the like it's the defenses, it's the bugs, it's the glitches. It's just it's really hard to reconcile with that. Like Last Epoch, the thing is Last Epoch is for me a solid 6.5 out of 10. And I am like a relatively harsh critic. But the problem with Last Epoch is that of those 3.5 remaining digits, 3 of it is just lost on the jank of the game. And they are working on the jank because we saw that on the Herod fight, which is like one of my biggest things that I complained about in the video, along with like all the enemy stuff. But it's just really hard to reconcile with that and continue playing it because it does feel like I'm lying to myself. Like, you enjoy the build making, the crafting, all of that is fine, but it's just built on a foundation that I struggle to enjoy when, like, you get to the end game and then there's just, like, random things that will one-shot you if you're not playing Paladin. Just things that aren't really avoidable because there's no consistency with the movement. Like, you'll dodge and then, like, because you're against a wall, you will just bounce off it in a completely random direction. And sometimes you'll roll in place. And there's just, like, the mechanical play that is available within ARPGs is attempted, but kind of flounders in the game. I will be back in next season, hopefully, but I think it's going to be like less and less playtime over time, as long as things don't change. If things do change, then I will learn to love Last Epoch yet again. But for now, I'm off. Later, gamers. Enjoy Last Epoch. Play this build. I don't think there will be anything quite like this build ever again in this game. This build is insanely powerful. And if you progress this build to, like, even higher levels, if you, like, push this to, like, 1,000 corruption, if you push this to, like, Uber Abberoth, and you're, like, farming it, like, he's your sell bottom, like, yeah, like, let me know in the comments. I'll see you around. Have fun, travelers.